Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Yak with Mac. This week, we get to talk about trust and trust from a little bit of a different angle. You ready to yak? Let's go at it. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Yak with Mac. Great to be back with you. It's been a couple of weeks since I was able to speak to you, and hopefully you're having a great start to your week. I'm going to talk about trust in a second, but boy, oh boy, I guess listen to our podcast on Thursday. Actually, I'll be on Friday this week with my son, Sports on the Positive Tip, and I will give you a full breakdown on how I feel about my Mets. And I will tell you this, I am still loyal. I love my team. And am I disappointed in the way the season ended? Yes, but I am eternally grateful, man. So many thrills this year, 101 wins. You can't just erase that. But we'll talk more about that on our sports show. But today I want to talk about trust. Thank you, Russ, for giving me this topic and asking the question to really talk about trust, speed of trust. And I'm really not going to talk about speed of trust. I'm going to just talk about it from a different angle, which is just my perspective and how I see trust and how I know that trust can be broken very easily. So I'm talking to middle managers here, right? That is the core of audience that I want to reach. So you folks that are running a restaurant, that are running a retail store, that are running multiple ones, that are district managers somewhere, even directors, right? But I don't think directors are so much considered middle management. Maybe in some companies you are. But these are the folks I want to talk to. And when you start to think about who is your audience when it comes to your people that you hire, they're typically pretty young, right? They're typically in their early 20s, late teens, even in some cases. And again, you just don't know where someone is coming from. Trust is such a fragile thing in our society. It has always been. It's probably even more with the advent of social media. And some people may say one thing, but then they see something else online and they say something totally different. And that breaches trust right there. There's so many factors that are out there that wasn't out there so much when I was growing up. So you want to know who your audience is, who's your core audience. You never know where someone is coming from. They could be coming from a broken home. They could be coming to the table already not trusting. But now let's paint a picture here, because now you've sat down for an interview and you've made a decision to hire this person. There's a little bit of trust there because they've accepted the role. Now, maybe they just needed a job, right? Maybe they just wanted to work for the company. But more than likely, there was a connection there and they're excited. They probably tell other people, hey, I got a job at X place. And I spoke to the store manager. I really liked the vibe that I got. So now they might have been coming to the table with a little bit of broken trust, but now you've got something going there. And I want to talk about three different phases that I've always been just conscious of when it comes to that employee. I want to talk about the employee that's new hire to 6 months to a year, and then a year and beyond, and how your trust can evolve and how you portray trust can evolve over the years. I want to tell a personal story in a second, but first, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to hold a book up. I'm not going to quote from this book. This is The Simple Truths of Leadership by Ken Blanchard and Randy Conley. Of course, Ken Blanchard, one unbelievable writer, so influential, especially early in my career with the 1 Minute Manager. But I'm not going to quote from that book, but I will tell you this. I want to recommend it, first of all. But second of all, I really want to talk about how Blanchard, I just want to highlight, not talk about too much. Blanchard and Conley really talk about servant leadership and building trust from a servant leadership point of view. So you've heard me say this before. I'm going to say it really strong again. If you make every single day about helping everybody around you get better, that builds trust. If you make every single day about helping everyone around you get better, that builds trust. It'll build your sales too, and it'll build everything else that you're trying to do within your store, department, whatever. Because if you make it about everybody else is going to get better. They're going to help you reach your goals. But that also is a big piece of building trust. Okay, so I want to say, you've heard me say this before. I came from a great home, great dad, great mom. there weren't trust issues there for me, right, growing up. And so my first real job at McDonald's, shout out to my man Dorian for hiring me, and who I still trust to this day, and who was just a great leader in my eyes. But there was another leader. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm going to write a little bit more about this in my book, A View from the Middle. Look for that in a couple of months. More information about that coming soon. But I'll never forget, I got hired in September, and it was a bunch of us that got hired at the same time. So we had this big orientation, and the one of the leaders came in, and I'll never forget this. One of the things he says, if you ever need anything, just call me, or just beep me. Remember, we had beepers back then. This is 1980, and so we had beepers back then. He said, just beep me, and you can tell me anything. You can trust me. I'll never forget he said that. And I got to tell you, my first day, that trust was totally broken. My first day, man, I'm flipping burgers. I'm getting taught how to do that. And there was an art to that. For those of you who worked at McDonald's, you know what I'm talking about. There was an art to doing that, man. You had to turn burgers over. I don't think you have to anymore, but it's been a long time since I worked at McDonald's, but I can remember that like it was yesterday. I'm holding a spatula, and I'm probably holding it at an angle that isn't that great, right? I'm brand new. It's my first day. And I ripped the meat, which was a no-no. If you ripped it just a little bit, you got to throw it out, right? And so I'm ripping one patty, ripping another one. Here comes that leader that walks past me. He stops, and he runs over to me, and he grabs the spatula out of my hand, and he said, "That's not how you turn the bleeping meat. This is how you turn the bleeping meat." And he shows me, and he's flawless at it, because obviously he'd been doing it for years. This was my first day. And oh, by the way, I was 17 years old. Might have even been 16, almost turning. Well, no, I was 17. It was September. I was 17. So I just, okay, thank you. And so I'm this kid that's terrified now of this guy. And I saw him relatively often over the next several months, but I remember he got fired for theft issues, right? So not a very trustworthy guy, right? And but I gotta take a step back and think about this. Now, hopefully that's never happened to you, but I think all of you have had leaders that have broken trust with you. And that leader at that moment broke trust with me, and I'm a kid. Do you think I would ever call him? Do you think I would ever ask him a question ever again? That trust was gone, man. It was totally 100% gone, done. And it was just in that instant. So again, and that was a kid that came to the table not with trust issues. I came to the table, man, feeling pretty good. I wasn't looking for a role model or anything like that. I had a role model in my life, my dad. And so know your audience. Know your audience. And again, don't hear what I'm not saying. Again, you're gonna fall short. You're not gonna be perfect. You're gonna fall short. But I'm gonna get to where you build up those points, as I've talked about, especially when it comes to trust. You build up a few things, and you do it in some certain ways where when you do fall short, it's not a trust issue. They just know that, hey, you messed up or you forgot or something like that. All right, let's talk about 3 phases for me. And I was always very cognizant of this. And I want to go into the first phase, and that is of a new hire to 6 months, right? Where it's almost like a little bit of a feeling out period now, right? And I know this has happened to all of us. We've hired somebody and they haven't worked out early, right? Early on, you see, man, where's that person that I interviewed, right? But I'm going to talk about the average new hire. Things went well in the interview, smooth going in. If you had to do a background check came out fine. Everything is good. If you had to do references, those all checked out fine. And now you brought them on board. There's certain things you can do that start to build trust. And I want to say this. Building trust goes way beyond, in business especially, goes way beyond just telling the truth. You see, telling the truth, if you're a leader and you've gotten up to this certain level, that should be easy. But we've all known leaders where telling the truth maybe isn't so easy. And I'm not saying if it's a hard truth that it's always, difficult to tell the truth, but man, if you're in leadership and you've gotten up to the level of a store manager of a major retail store or something like that, you should be trustworthy. But this goes beyond just speaking the truth and telling the truth, right? There's a lot of factors when it comes to trust and losing trust. All right. So you got that new hire to 6 months, right? First, you got to be patient. You got to be patient with them. Not everybody's going to pick it up right away. Again, my first day in McDonald's, I'm ripping meat all over the place. I'm dropping stuff. I must have cost them a couple of $100 in buns dropping on the floor and patties, everything like that. And the wonderful store manager was so patient with me. The gentleman I remember that was training me was so patient with me. It was just that one guy. And so trust was totally broken. But patience builds trust, because someone sees that and says, man, people know when they're messing up, when they're not doing well. And they might expect you to jump all over their case. And if you don't, you say, hey, listen, that's okay. You didn't get it today. You go get it tomorrow. And I'm going to show you. And here's my second point with that new hire. Teaching builds trust. You have to spend so much time teaching that new hire. And when you're teaching them, they know that now you have a vested interest in them, and you're teaching them the right way, with patience, with kindness, with love even. And when someone realizes that, that starts to really build trust. So in that new hire to 6 months, patience, trust. And then this is very important. Following up builds a lot of trust. I have seen and heard from folks, especially in my training days, that would maybe come to class and have a lot of questions about benefits. I'm going to use that as an example. And that can be very, very important to most people. It probably is important to most people. And they would say, listen, my manager said that they were going to go over this and they never followed up with me. I sent it in and I don't even know if it's right. I didn't get a confirmation. Or my manager said they would send it in and help me for it. I'm coming up on 30 days. Can you help? And of course, I stop everything and I would help them and make sure it's done 100% perfect. But something like that in those early days where someone really needs something, or someone might need a day off in those early days, and maybe you didn't write it down and you forgot. In those early days, man, they're going to think that, hey, you're not good at following up. And as my leader, you need to be good at following up. Or what I'm telling my leader is really not important to me. And so that breaks trust. That breaks trust. So following up builds trust, saying, hey, yeah, we're going to do your benefits tomorrow morning, first thing. What time are you in? 10 a.m. Okay. We're going to sit down. You're not going to go on the floor. We're going to go and build trust. Tomorrow morning comes, it's 10 a.m. You grab them, you sit down, and you take care of their benefits. So making them feel important early on and making them feel like they're part of something big early on builds trust. Hiring you was one of the best decisions I ever made. Thank you so much for being here. I just think it's awesome that you are working with us. That all builds trust, right? Because how does that make a person feel? Wow, okay, they didn't forget about me. And that is great. So making them feel like they're part of something big. This is going to be one of the best stores in the whole New York or Los Angeles area. And you're going to be a big part of that. Thank you for coming on board. That builds trust. That builds trust. All right, let's look at phase two. Phase two, now it's 6 months to a year. You want to reiterate to people that they made a great decision coming on board. Now, if someone has lasted with you this long now, 6 months, they should have at least the basics of the position down, right? They probably want to be there because they would have left, right? And you probably want them there because you would have probably fired them, right? So now it's 6 months to a year. It's probably a good employee that you want to keep there for the long haul, right? So continue development, because now it's 6 months. I just said this. They probably have the basics down. What's the next level for them? What's that next step? How do they get better? How do they go from good to great? So continued development, going from good to great, that builds trust. That builds trust. Consistent one-on-ones. I can't emphasize this enough. Being able to sit down, and I've always recommended that maybe it should be more than once a month these days. There's so much that happens in business, so many changes, no matter what business you're in today. But I think that consistently doing those as scheduled, consistently, that builds trust. That really, really builds trust. So recapping that, 6 months to a year, you know you got a good employee now because they're there that long. They're still with you, and you haven't let them go. So there's a good employee that probably has the basics down. So now how do you continue to build trust? You have that continued development. You help them go from good to great. and then you have those consistent one-on-ones. Let's talk now about 1 year and beyond. Now, this is different. This is different. At the 1 year mark, and leaders I see struggle with this a lot. At the 1 year mark, you as the leader should have let your hair down, so to speak, by now. They should know a little bit about you. And I know that if it's your nature to be really, really private in a lot of things, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But they should have seen the real you right now. And I've mentioned this a lot. It was impossible for me to put on another face when I went to work and then put on another face when I went home. Put on another face when I'm out with my friends and family. What my folks saw at work was the real me. And I think that served me pretty well over the years. And for those of you that are doing that, I'm sure that serves you well. And now that starts to really build trust in this way, because there's going to be some time within this year that you messed up, that you might have missed a one-on-one, or that you may have missed a developmental session, whatever it was. There's going to be those times. But if someone has gotten now to know you on the personal side, man, they know Kenny, that's not like him. That's not like him. It's okay that he missed it. And you know what? He grabbed me and he said, he apologized and he set up another time and he honored that particular time. Because we're all going to be human. Things are going to come up, especially in the target audience that I have, right? Retail, restaurants, places like that, customer issues, things like that are going to come up. People understand that as long as you follow back up with them, and then trust is still there. But when people get to know you on the human side, you let your hair down just a little bit. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not advocating going and hanging out with your team and, going and having some drinks, after work. Absolutely not. But have them get to know a little bit of an insight of you, a little bit of an insight of you. Getting to know you builds trust and it allows for your mistakes. And this may not really start to happen in a really deeper way until 1 year in. You got somebody for a year, that's a good employee, man. You want to hold on to them. You want to develop them. You want to make sure that they are moving to that next level. All right, those are my recommendations. I already talked about the book recommendations, Simple Truths of Leadership, as Kim Blanchard and Randy Conley. It is a great read, a pretty easy read. So I would, pick that up. Costs only a few dollars. Some companies also might have that free on their internal websites. It's a great book. But there's one thing that is an expression from this book that I do want to quote that I hope that you are using today, and that's making common sense common practice. You see, trust is all about common sense. It's more than just telling people the truth. It is people believing in you. It is people depending on you and knowing that they feel safe in your environment. Not safe from harm, but safe that, hey, this is a place that's organized, well run, because that leader over there, I could trust that they're going to be here when they say they're going to be here. I could trust that they are going to do what they say they are going to do. All right, I'm going to leave it there for now. This has been Kenny. This has been the Yak with Mac. I will be yakking back at you again next week. Talk to you real soon.